There's been big changes at the Hawaii Republican Party, and we're going to get the scoop from the top guy there. Aloha, I'm Malia Zimmerman, and this is the news behind the news. Welcome, Jonah.
Good to be here, Malia. Thank you.
Thank you. So tell us about the Republican Party and the last convention you had, which just wrapped up.
Yeah, we just had our convention on May 13th through the 15th on Kauai. It was a successful convention. We had nearly almost 200 people, maybe a little over with guests and everything. So it's one of the bigger Neighbor Island conventions we've had. And it was pretty exciting. And it was an election year for state officers. And I'm honored again to be the chair for the party. And we, in a nutshell, I mean, we had a lot of activity, a lot of brand new people to the Republican Party, a lot of fresh faces, as well as a lot of our regular people there. But there was a lot of brand new people, and we did a lot of changes at the grassroots level at the Republican Party. So moving forward, we're absolutely excited.
So the way the Republican Party works is during an election year, you have your convention on Oahu, and then on the off-election years, you go to the Neighbor Islands, right?
That's
to kind of give everybody a chance.
Right.
Whereas the Democrats, they do their convention only on election year, every other year.
Right.
So you had a good turnout on Kauai. Mm-hmm. And what about, one of the things you do is besides electing officers, is you talk about resolutions. You get into debates about what does your party stand for,
right,
and that kind of thing. So tell us, what does your party stand for?
Well, it's kind of been a growth process. In the last year at our 2010 convention, we passed a new platform for the Republican Party, the only one of its kind across the nation for Republicans. It's 5 simple principles. It's liberty, limited government, individual responsibility, fiscal accountability, equality of opportunity. So it took us a lot to get to that point where we're saying, we need a change. We had a 17-page behemoth of a platform that no one knew. You ask candidates, what did you stand for? Do you use a platform? No candidates use it. No members read it other than the people on the platform committee. So we needed something this is the consumer age. We need something that people could speak off the tip of their tongue, and it's the LIFE platform, LLIFE. So life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So that's where the idea came from. So from that process of changing the platform last year, what we did this year, rather than other conventions, when we brought up resolutions, it was an emotion-based process where people brought up things that they were passionate about, but really had no basis of principle. So we said, if you're going to bring up resolutions in this convention, it needs to fall in line with the life principles of the party. So we saw 15 resolutions get passed at the Republican Party convention, which I thought was magnificent. And every single one of these resolutions, in the platform committee made it a point that every single one of these resolutions had at least 1 or 2, if not all 5 of the different principles within the body of the resolution. So now it came down to, vote your conscience. So it was very neat to see an overwhelming support from the majority of the members that were for almost all of the resolutions.
Okay, tell me about these. There's 15 resolutions this year. How does that compare in the past? Did you have about that many before?
Well, in the last convention, we had 1 ceremonial resolution, and one was almost unanimous, was to support the governor vetoing HB 444, Civil Unions Bill.
Right.
So it's not very common to have so many come up.
Oh, that's okay. And what do you think? Why did that happen, do you think?
Well, I think what happened in that natural progression is now, there was, after the platform was passed last year, everybody's like, well, the party doesn't stand for anything.
Right.
It's a process of growth. Now, what we're able to do is say, okay, based upon principle, what do we stand? The issues that are important to Republicans now, how do we define ourselves based upon our principles? So I think people saw the opportunity, they jumped on that chance, and so there was a bunch of different authors that came out and said, hey, this is what I feel about bill. This is what I feel about human life. This is what I feel about small businesses, and a range of just fantastic range of things that came up from that convention.
Okay, now tell me about this. In the past, Governor Lingle has signed a no tax pledge, but then she did vote to allow a bill. She did allow a bill to go forward that raised taxes, the general excise tax on Oahu for rail. But then, now that she's out of office, the Republicans have passed a resolution saying that they're opposing all taxes, right?
Yes.
All tax increases, right?
Absolutely.
All tax and fee increases.
Yes.
So that's a big switch from just when you have somebody like as high up as the governor saying, okay, well, I'm going to let this one go through or that one go through. Does it make it hard for the rest of the party to kind of stand up to this one person and say, we don't believe in tax increases and we don't want fee increases and this is, I mean, it's like almost like a hard message.
Well, I think when you're the governor, you have to take certain stances, and
Yeah.
you govern more in the center. And I think she had to do her political plays. And I think the party, there's no doubt over the last 10 years, the party was designed in order to keep Linda Lingo in office.
Yeah.
And they did a fantastic job, and we did. I mean, Hawaii benefited, no doubt,
Right.
that we benefited by having a governor in office. But at the same time, on the back end, the party suffered because it wasn't able to attract people that were more true to principle. So, give or take, having a governor out of office now and not having to govern, I think it's easier for these things to get through. So
it's a lot more pure. I mean, you don't have to worry about which lawmakers doing this because you only have 8 House members and 1 senator.
Sure.
So you're kind of like starting anew in a way,
Yes,
right?
it really is. And it's for the members. The party is for the membership.
Right.
And if we're driven by either a candidate or an issue, a single candidate or a single issue, as we've seen in the past, when those issues come and go, as well as the candidates come and go, so goes the party. So what we really wanted to do at this convention, and it seemed to be the general consensus of everyone, is like, let's use our principles, let's define ourselves according to our principles. And that's why we came up with this incredible array of resolutions that came out. It's just fantastic.
So let's talk about some of those resolutions if you're up for it. I remember one of them you talked about was, because we talked about this before, was the fact that the tax and fee increases. Now, where did that come from, and how did that come about? No tax or fee increases.
Well, I think that's a general feeling amongst Republicans. It's one of the things that we're well known for, and in this time and age where the budget is going to be balanced on the back of the people with taxes and fee increases, it was very poignant at this time that the convention talk about taxes and fee increases. There is no way that the progressive Democrats in the legislature, as well as Mr. Abercrombie, is going to reduce spending in government. So, and if they say that, we don't believe it. So we're putting a message out to the people of Hawaii that in order to have real economic change in Hawaii, you gotta stop taxing the people.
Right. Okay, and then what about the Jones Act? Now, I was surprised that people came out, the resolution came out, I think it was against the Jones Act, right?
It is.
And not for an exemption for Hawaii, but actually against the Jones Act.
Yes, it is. I mean, it would be for, it is. It's
because
a repeal of the Jones Act,
right,
period.
Because for people that don't follow the Jones Act, it's a federal law that says that ships that travel between American ports have to be American owned and American manned. And so that is a very controversial topic because the people that are for it say it's going to create jobs for Americans, it's going to keep foreign competition out, it's going to help with American goods, but and then it's also going to protect the ports for keep it secure. But then the people that are opposed to it are like, it's going to raise the cost of living and it's going to keep out competition, yes, and that raises the price of the goods that come to Hawaii. Right. And some economists even say it raises it as much as 30%.
Yes.
So our cost of living is raised potentially 30% because of the Jones Act. So Republicans came out, and there's controversy on both sides. There's Democrats that are opposed to the Jones Act. Sure. There's Democrats that are for it. There's Republicans for it, Republicans against it. But the majority of Republicans came out and said, no Jones Act. According
to our principles, we cannot believe that the Jones Act is fiscally responsible and that it limits government. It actually puts in more government into play and actually increases the cost of doing business. So as Republicans, it seems to be, according to our principles, natural that we would be against the Jones Act. Okay, now I remember another one you told me about, which is another very controversial one, probably the most controversial one of all that we've mentioned so far, the Akaka bill. Yes. Now, we had Governor Lingo lobbying for the Akaka bill, but she also wanted the old version, which originally had gotten introduced like 10 years ago, I think. And then as we followed the progression of the Akaka bill, Dad Inouye and Dan Akaka, our U.S. senators, had changed the version to turn Hawaiians into Indian tribes, right. And then to possibly allow gambling. And there was all these questions about tax bases and people living in tribes in Hawaii when they've never been in tribes before. Yes. How it would affect the tax base, how it would affect land ownership. Yes. What kind of land would be given up to these tribes? Who would have the power? What tribes would be negotiating with our government? And so it's like this whole new world if the Akaka bill passes, sure. Right?
So a lot of people were opposed, but that was for a quiet, group for a while. I mean, they were fighting,
Sure.
fighting, but not their voice wasn't as loud as the powerful people that wanted the Akaka bill.
Right.
So what on earth happened at the convention that the people came out against the Akaka bill? It was just a change.
I was sitting in the back of the room during
Yeah.
this particular vote, and there were
Yeah.
very few people who were against this resolution opposing the Akaka bill.
Uh-huh.
And when you look at the basis of the Akaka bill, it really is against liberty. It just puts another layer of government. So it's against an individual's right to choose. It puts in more entitlement. It just continues to put layers. It increases government. It takes away individual responsibility because of that entitlement.
Right.
Fiscal accountability, of course, now goes up. And so it's very much, as a Republican or a conservative, it's very much against principle. So I think, being very clear on where we stand on principle, I think the Republicans came out and it was almost a unanimous vote is what I saw.
That's a huge change. I mean, that's huge. And George Bush, Governor Lingle did lobby George Bush when he came here. I remember her telling us that she rode in his limo when he was here and lobbied him on the Akaka bill. But actually, even George Bush's Justice Department came out against it.
Right.
And that was a big deal.
Sure.
And then a lot of the senators who you would think would support Dan Akaka or Dan Inouye did not support the Akaka bill because they just thought it was going to be too divisive. And they also weren't really sure if it starts here, how's it going to impact the rest of the nation where Hawaiian people are living, Native
Right.
Hawaiian people. So it was a huge, huge issue, and it's been going on for more than a decade.
Right.
So this is like a big, big deal that the Republicans came out and said this.
I agree. And if
Yeah.
people want to see it online, I mean, they're welcome to go to our website and check it out. It's a very short but concise, say that it's
Yeah.
against liberty. I mean, it's
Yeah.
very simple. I mean, it lays out exactly why it's against the principle of the Republican Party. And if you're going to be true to principle, then you have to be against the Akaka bill.
Okay, what else do you got in there?
Well, we have, that we didn't mention, we have recognizing and supporting Hawaii's small businesses.
Okay, well, that's a good one.
Yes.
Let's stop on that for a second. We've got two studies that just came out in the last couple of days. One says that Hawaii is the 47th least free state, meaning, and that's a Mercatus study. And that basically means and it cited the economy and the business and the taxes as
Right.
big problems for Hawaii residents to make them the least free, economically free. And the other one was a report that came out a few days ago that was from the chiefexecutive.org, and it said that Hawaii has one of the worst business climates in the nation, 43rd worst.
Sure.
But we've often been first worst, I mean, in
Yes.
terms of economy.
Right.
And in terms of a business climate
Right.
and how high the taxes are, how high the
Sure.
regulations, what an imposition it is with the regulations for a business, the mandates on business. So this is a good one,
Yeah.
small business.
Yeah, it's supporting small businesses,
Yeah.
saying that is the economic engine of Hawaii, that we
What-
have 25,000 small businesses,
Yep.
96%, it employs 96% of all employees,
Yeah.
56% of the private sector employment, 60 to 80% of new job creation happens
Right.
in small businesses.
So basically, without small businesses surviving, you're going to have even more job loss than we already have.
Yes.
And when we just recently had the Council on Revenues come out and say, we still have a minus 1.6% growth for this year, and we hope in the future it'll jump up to 11% next year, but we still see jobs lagging.
Yes.
And so if you have jobs lagging, it's really tough to
Right.
get the economy going
Right.
again.
And it's the quality of jobs, too.
Right. Oh, yes.
So, we may have a lower unemployment rate here in Hawaii, but the quality plus the cost of living is tough for people.
Right. And then we also talk about the hidden unemployment where people actually give up looking for a job.
So, right.
And so, yes, maybe the number is lower than some other states, but what about the people that gave up?
Right. So I
Yeah.
think what the tax base is under 50%
Right.
of the state's population here.
Right,
It's,
right.
Yeah, it's tough. So endorsing every citizen's right to work. So we want a right to work state.
Yep.
That's a good thing as a Republican. Opposing card check and supporting the secret ballot. Rejecting.
And let's just that really quick.
Sure.
The card check actually passed in Hawaii.
It did.
We're the only state that it passed in,
Right.
from what I understand, unless something changed from last year. But basically what it is it's putting pressure on union members to vote publicly because they have to show their ballot, right? When they're
Yes.
voting
Yes.
about whether or not to take to take a workplace to become unionized. So I think it's actually employees that are being pressured to unionize would have to show their ballot to the union members to say whether or not they want to vote.
Right.
So that's a controversial
It is.
thing for a small business that might not want to be unionized, or a big business, and
Sure.
also for the employees to be put on the spot like that.
Right. It's targeted right now at agriculture, particularly the seed companies that are out here in Hawaii, and the GMOs, the enviro progressives on the Democrat side are of course against GMOs and other things. So
Right.
it's targeted at them, and
Yeah.
it's just the first step to spreading it out across all business in the state of Hawaii. So it
And
is.
throughout the country.
Well, there you go. I
Right.
mean, Hawaii is always a bastion of starting progressive policies.
I
so-
know, we're always the first to experiment. We always think everybody's
We
going to
do.
follow us,
We
right?
do. We have a resolution opposing the Honolulu Rail Transit Plan being
Okay.
economic inefficient. Housing inmates in private mainland prisons.
Okay, that's a good one to talk about real
Sure.
quick. With the mainland prisons right now, we have about, I think it's about
1,600.
1,600, right? And then the cost is real different between locally putting somebody in prison versus the mainland.
$139 a day locally, and almost $63 on the mainland.
So, but the governor Abercrombie now wants to bring the prisoners home because he said it's better for their culture to be with their family, and they don't want them to be connected with mainland gangs. But what I was actually told by the Arizona prison that runs the prison there for Hawaii
Sure.
prisoners is that was just built for Hawaii prisoners.
Yeah, there's no interaction with any mainland gangs. In fact, all of the origination of the gangs starts here in Hawaii. I worked in corrections for 10 years, so yeah,
Right.
it starts here in Hawaii.
And we've seen complaints in the newspaper recently where the prisoners in Hawaii don't like they don't like the food portions.
Yeah.
And they're
absolutely.
complaining about the food. They're complaining about overcrowding.
Right.
And so when you talk about bringing suddenly 1,600 more people back and doubling the cost, basically, and there's no room, there's
There
no
isn't.
prison. Where are you going to build the prison? You're always going to get people complaining. So it's a lot simpler to keep them in the mainland.
It is, and what the mainland has that we don't have in Hawaii is programming. They get to work. They get all of their programming. So, cognitive restructuring and all of these different programmings, educational opportunities, they don't have it here in Hawaii because we can't afford it. 70%, as we know, of what goes into the state budget goes to cost of employees in the state system. So that programming and other things just doesn't happen in Hawaii. But when they go off to the mainland, they get all of this wonderful work training, they get all of this education as well as the programming that they need in order to meet their parole specifications, and then they get released. So it's much better for them in an overall. I can understand the side of the culture and being close to your family, but a lot of them didn't think about their family before they committed the crime. So I think for the taxpayers of the state of Hawaii and for the betterment, these guys come out there, your neighbor, they're my neighbor. And if we don't give them a chance to program, to reprogram, they're going to be out doing the same thing again.
It's so true, right? And I've actually received letters from the women prisoners saying they like it where they are.
Oh, yeah.
And they don't want to come back. They don't want to
really
come
do.
back to Hawaii. So
They really do.
interesting story. That's a
and-
really important story.
And that's the thing about politics. I mean, even the inmates become political pawns. I mean, education system, our poor children are the political pawns. And then, the homeless are our political pawns. And you have the politicians out there using all of these guys in the process of getting reelected and making themselves feel good about themselves rather than taking care of the people. And that's a problem with politics.
Now, the Honolulu Rail is an interesting resolution, too, because it's against the rail.
Yes.
That's a 5.5 or 5.3 billion, depending on who you believe.
Yeah.
It could go up
We
to
have
8 billion. Oh, 7 billion. It just
Yeah,
depends
so
on who you
let's swing
ask.
in the middle, yeah.
And when has a project in Hawaii ever come in on budget?
Oh, yeah, never.
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 Never. So and you talk, you look at the H3 and how long that took and how much that cost, the most expensive highway in the nation
Right.
ever built. So give me a break.
Well, and then you think about government subsidies to upkeep the rail once
Right.
it's built.
Right.
It's never going to pay for itself. Never,
Right.
ever, ever.
But it'll keep the steelworker union members employed.
Well, it is.
And that's
It's-
the important part for
Well,
them.
And that's politics
That's
for you.
politics,
Yeah.
right. But there's a big movement now with the lawsuit, which is actually a bipartisan lawsuit
Yes,
against
it
the
is.
rail. You have former Governor Kaitana, a Democrat.
Right.
You have Donna Wong from Hawaii Thousand Friends, definitely not a Republican.
Yes.
I don't know what party, but I'm sure she's not a Republican. And you have Panos Provodoros, Oh, no. Panos is a expert witness, but you have Cliff Slater,
Sure.
who I don't know if he is a member.
I'm not sure either.
Yeah, he's really a libertarian,
Okay.
if you had to pick. Then you have Senator Sam Sloan, who's a Republican,
Republican.
and the Small Business Foundation. And Randy Roth, who's a famous author and also worked for Governor Lingle. So you definitely have. I know I'm missing some people, but you definitely have a balance.
Yes, you do.
Of Libertarian, Republican, Democrat coming together with the environmentalists and the people who are concerned about the culture of Hawaii changing, digging up Evie or the bones along the rail route, taking down trees, ruining historic buildings, and what kind of impact that's going to have. But that's another example where Governor Lingle supported a rail system, not necessarily the steel on steel, but a rail system in Honolulu. Not necessarily an elevated steel on steel rail, but she supported a rail. So that's a big break too, right there.
It is.
Yeah,
It is.
a big change for the Republican Party to be able to come out and say.
It's hard when I go back again, it's hard when you measure up any issue up against the principles to say that we're going to be for something that's fiscally irresponsible.
Right.
No one has yet to prove to anyone, at least that I know of, that the rail is going to be fiscally responsible.
Right.
If it is, then hey, let's do it.
Right. It'll never pay for itself. First they claim it's going to improve traffic, but then in their own studies it shows traffic's not going to be improved.
Sure.
Then you say, well, you said right here it says traffic's not going to be better. And then they say, well, this is for jobs. We're going to create jobs. Well, then you say, well, some of these are just temporary jobs, and some of them are jobs for mainland people or European companies bringing in the rail carts and things like that. And then they say, well, this is gonna help the economy, that kind of thing. So never is there really I've never really come across a good answer on that.
Yeah, I haven't either.
Yeah.
I'm not convinced.
So there are a lot of people that aren't convinced. And despite the mayor just coming out with his poll that says it's overwhelming support, it's all the way you ask questions in a poll.
Right.
Everybody knows that. Everybody knows who's watched Hawaii elections where the polls show one thing and then the candidate just tanks during the election. Knows
absolutely
that polls aren't reliable.
They aren't. And then you have to look at who the voting bloc is, which is the union voting bloc anyway.
Right.
So it's always this skewed.
Exactly.
Supporting limited and efficient government, resolution on victims' rights, resolution for freedom of religion, resolution commending pregnancy resource centers, resolution on protecting human life, resolution expressing gratitude to the members of the military and veterans for their service and honoring the memory of veterans gone before us. We talked about the opposition of the Akaka bill, supporting the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution, right to bear arms, and then the repeal of the Jones Act.
Great.
So good stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah, strong.
Really.
Well, strong resolutions.
It does. And what my feeling as a Republican Party chair is that there is a place for everyone who's a conservative in the Republican Party. It really is. Naturally, with liberty, limited government, individual responsibility, fiscal accountability, and equality of opportunity, you translate into those constitutional values into a conservative thought pattern. And that's what you get. And whether economic conservative or you're a fiscal conservative, moral, economic, moral, fiscal, whatever you want, there is a place for you in the Republican Party. We don't all have to agree as conservatives on what's important on the issues, but what we have to do is we have to dance together, as Cliff Slater likes this. It's better that we align ourselves because we have the same foe. The same foe is the progressive movement, the statism movement that is taking us to big and inefficient government. So I think the people that agree somewhat on, there's people who agree 50% of these things.
Right.
And then there's some that, like myself, who agree on 100% of these. Right. And I think that's why I'm the party chair, because I can go out there and talk on any one of these issues.
Right.
But if you're passionate about being a conservative, any of your issues, there is only one party in the state of Hawaii that you can go to, and these make very, very clear. So I'm sure there's a lot more resolutions going to come up in the future. Education wasn't in there. I know there was one that people wanted to put out for marriage and for the protection of Israel and other things that people wanted to put out. But eventually, we'll see a good, solid resolutions. And we believe that in this consumer age, it's easy to remember the platform. It's really snappy. It's really easy to remember. But what the resolutions represent is that also, that consumer age where things change. Things change. And some of these resolutions will be here 10, 15 years from now. Maybe some of them won't. But it gives us an opportunity to measure that every single year these resolutions have to be re-anteed up, so to speak.
Now, what about the coming elections? We only have a couple of minutes left on the show, but I wanted to talk to you about the 2012 elections. We're in the middle of reapportionment, which means the lines are all going to be redrawn.
That's right.
Into who's in what district. We have every House member up and every Senate member up for a re-election, which is very unusual. That only happens once every 10 years.
That's right.
We also have the Congress members up for re-election and Senator Kaauwai's seat. So it's a big deal.
It is. This is a huge year.
Yeah. So what do you think about that?
I'm excited. We, at the Republican Party, I think as of last week, we have 47 candidates
That want to run?
that want to run
Wow.
legislative seats.
Great.
That includes our incumbents. We have we have incumbents, and then actually out of those, less the incumbents, we have 13 repeat candidates.
Now, sometimes in the past, the party criticized for not doing enough for candidates. What is your role in helping candidates? You recruit.
We recruit candidates, we train them, we give them all the necessary tools that they need in order to be successful. When it comes to fundraising, they're responsible for doing their own fundraising. We give them all of the expertise and the support that they need on that end.
So, so that's a lot of challenge right there. It's great to see competition between the Democrat and Republican Party.
It is.
But it's tough. It's a tough machine to beat.
It is. It's going to take time. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. But we believe, based upon our vision for the future and bringing politics back to principle, very simple, that we stand an excellent chance. And we can't ask for a greater governor with Neil Abercrombie as well as this legislature, just showing everybody the complete disregard that these people and the Democrat Party have for the welfare and well-being of the people of Hawaii. So they're making our point every single day, and we're glad
So you're
that
just
they're
saying
there.
basically there's a big contrast between the two parties.
Huge.
And it probably even comes out more so with these resolutions.
Absolutely.
Because the Democrats are probably on the opposite of almost all of those. Not necessarily the rail, but on almost everything else, right?
Absolutely.
And maybe some on the Jones Act, there's a controversy with that.
Right, and there's always primaries.
Right.
If you're Republican and you support the Jones Act
Right.
and one that doesn't, that's why
Right.
you have a primary.
Exactly.
And so you fight it out in the primary, and whoever wins, the party gets behind them, regardless. Any Republican, in my view, obviously as a chairman, any Republican is better than any Democrat.
Right,
So,
right.
and we'll live by that standard.
Okay, that sounds like a good slogan for your election.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for joining us today.
Good to be here.
This has been News Behind the News. I'm Aaliyah Zimmerman. Aloha.